This video contains discussions of the following topics. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey everybody, it's Pride Month. You know what that means? It means I have to go through another month of all sorts of horse shit popping up on social media about how asexuals aren't oppressed, or asexuality isn't real, or most bafflingly, asexuality is inherently homophobic? Let me just say up front, if you're spending your pride posting to social media about how ace people don't belong in the queer community, then the bigots have already successfully distracted you from the real issues at hand. I mean, you should know something is going wrong if you're agreeing with well-known right-wing pundit Matt Walsh.
An asexual is somebody who supposedly doesn't experience any sexual attraction at all to anyone. The problem with that identification is that, first of all, if it's true that somebody experiences no sexual attraction at all, then it makes absolutely no sense to include them in the LGBT community, given that this is a community which is literally defined by its various sexual attractions.
Honestly, I'm getting pretty sick of having to counter these arguments every time I see them, so tell you what, I'm going to make a video going through every single argument I know of that has ever been used against asexuality and or its inclusion in the queer community. That way, when someone makes some sort of ignorant acephobic comment, I can just link to this video with a timestamp and call it a day. And you can too. Hopefully, if you mouse over the playhead, you should see this video's divided up into several sections based on which arguments it's talking about. As long as that's something I can do when I haven't given YouTube my birth certificate, social security number, parents' address, and top 5 biggest fears. If not, the timestamp will still be in the description. You'll just have to navigate to them manually. Also, before I begin, I want to give a special shout out to the Ace Hate database at asexual-aces.com. I'm using this database for most of my sources regarding acephobic arguments, and this video probably would not exist if it wasn't for them, so thank you. I would also like to give a shout out to aromantic people. I love you, and I see you, and this video is unfortunately not about you because I'm not aro, and I haven't talked to enough aro people about aromanticism to feel like I could represent it well enough for this kind of video. Maybe someday. Anyway, the best place to start seems like it would be the biggest and most common argument I've seen. This is by far the most common type of acephobic argument I see, and it's not even a good one. You can't really say someone's experiences aren't real when they share those experiences with a statistically significant portion of the population. At that point, you at least have to concede that something's going on there. You can say what you want about the root cause, but to say that everyone experiences sexual attraction is so patently false that I don't even feel like I need to give a source for it. The fact that we're even talking about it should be proof enough. So, speaking of root causes, let's talk about why some people think asexuality doesn't exist.
Asexuality is just a medical condition.
There's this episode of House MD where this couple says they're asexual, and then House finds and removes a tumor in the husband's brain. Suddenly he's not asexual anymore, and then he worries about how his wife will react, but it turns out that his wife was just faking being asexual so that he wouldn't feel bad that they weren't having sex. Obviously, this isn't the basis for the original argument that asexuality is just a medical condition, but it's a good illustration of it. The original argument probably dates back further than asexuality as a term. People lacking a sense of attraction has been conflated with a lack of sex drive for a long time, and a lack of sex drive has always been seen as a medical problem that needs fixing. For one thing, this argument is, according to modern psychiatry, false. Asexuality stopped being included in the DSM with the release of the DSM-5 in 2013, along with homosexuality and gender identity disorder. But for another thing, so what if it was a medical condition? See, this is something I've always had a problem with because it also has to do with disability discourse. There's this pretty pervasive idea in our society that people with disabilities are broken and need to be fixed. And it's an idea that disability advocates really try to push back against. If tomorrow there was some pill or brain chip implant or something that came out that would instantly cure any and all instances of paraplegia, we wouldn't stop advocating for wheelchair ramps. Putting aside the fact that paraplegics aren't the only ones who use ramps, a good percentage of people would just not take the cure. Maybe they would feel it's too invasive. Maybe they can't afford it. Maybe they don't think their disability is a problem. I have ADHD, and I've come to accept and even love having it. It doesn't diminish my quality of life. I have coping strategies and technology that help me with the things I used to struggle with. And at this point in my life, I can't imagine my brain working any other way. If there was some miracle cure for ADHD out there, I would refuse to take it, and I would fight anyone who tried to make me. And this is the reason accusations that asexuality or homosexuality or being transgender or medical disorders never really had any weight to me. Because by saying that asexuality is a medical disorder that needs to be fixed, you're basically saying that everyone with a disability should be forced to be cured. And I'm really not about that.
Asexuals are just prudes.
Look, I'm ace, and about as sex positive as you can get without having it yourself. I've actually been planning on making a series of videos where I would review porn games for their gameplay regardless of actual sexual content, because I think there are a few genuinely fun games out there that people tend to disregard because of their pornographic nature. I think people get confused with the difference between sex negativity and sex repulsion, neither of which are specific to asexuality. Being sex repulsed just means that you personally don't want to see or talk about sex or sexual content because it makes you uncomfortable. Sex negative people don't want anyone to talk about or see sex or sexual content for a multitude of reasons, which can include sex repulsion but usually doesn't. Most sex-repulsed people I know just use the filtering tools available to them on the internet to not have to view sexual content. It's kind of like how if you have a fear of spiders, you can download a browser extension that turns pictures of spiders into pictures of puppies and kittens. But I don't think anybody's gonna think it would be reasonable to go to somebody who's mainly posts about spiders on social media and tell them to stop posting about spiders because you're arachnophobic. Are there sex-negative asexuals? Sure. I think part of this misconception came about because there are some ace folks who are incredibly loud about their sex negativity. But you can't really call all ace folks sex negative because of it.
Asexuals just need to have sex, so they realize what they're missing.
Hoo boy. Now we come to, in my mind, the most harmful part of this section. It's something that I actually believed about myself from the ages of 13 to 21. It wasn't until I actually had sex that I realized it was bullshit. I don't regret having sex, mind you. It happened to be something I wanted to try with my loving partner at the time. It was fun, in the same way playing video games with your partner is fun, but playing video games doesn't involve as much physical exertion or bodily fluids that need to be cleaned up afterwards, so I've decided to do other things with my time. That's not going to be the case for everyone who believes this kind of thing about themselves. They may feel pressured into a very harmful sexual situation. Or worse, someone else may believe this about them and try to fix it themselves. We'll get into more detail on corrective rape in a later section, but suffice it to say this is bad, and it's been something that's been used against gay and lesbian folks for decades. I mean, just think of how common the trope of a parent telling their lesbian daughter, "You just need to find the right man," is. And if you yourself are doubting whether you're asexual because you've never had sex, then believe me when I say it's not going to change anything. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And that's all there is to it. Look, I don't really think inclusion in the queer community should be based on who's oppressed the most. That seems a bit too pessimistic for me. It's not about oppression, it's about being outside the cishet norm. And if so much of our society being based around sex and sexual attraction isn't enough to convince you that ace folks are outside the norm, then I don't think anything will be. That said, ace folks do face some rather serious oppression, and it's often ignored or lumped in with other identities. Let's talk about that now.
Medical discrimination.
Like I said earlier in the video, some people think that asexuality is a medical condition. The important part here is that some people, in this case, includes doctors. Doctors who will then attempt to cure the problem, often ignoring any other factors. On the flip side, doctors may refuse sexual health care to asexual people. Many asexuals do have sex despite a lack of sexual attraction, but doctors will often deny asexual people things like birth control or STD screenings. Even if ace people were somehow incapable of having sex, even in cases of sexual assault, birth control has uses outside of preventing pregnancy, and people get STDs from things other than sexual activity all the time. A lot of this comes from a lack of knowledge about competent care for ace people. I suspect that trainings for doctors about how to care for queer folks don't include a section for asexuals. Anyway, this video isn't about speculating on why ace people are discriminated against. It's just proving that it happens. And it happens.
Legal discrimination.
Have you ever heard of a marriage consummation law? I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't. They don't really come up in most marriages. See, it turns out that in a majority of US states, you can have your marriage annulled if it was never consummated. Meaning, if you never have sex in your marriage, someone can come along and declare your marriage invalid. Now, I'm not going to argue against divorce. I think no-fault divorce should be legal everywhere. But we're talking about laws where a third party, a complete stranger, could come in and declare your marriage invalid because you've never had sex. This is especially important in immigration cases. Immigration officers will often ask very personal and private questions about immigrants' sex lives and have marriages annulled and people deported just because they haven't had sex or aren't having enough of it. Quote, questions asked about couples' sex lives include, for example, when did you last have sex? Where? How often do you have sex? Are you planning to have children? How many? Do you use birth control? What type? Is your husband circumcised? Does your spouse have any tattoos in private places? Even if I was sexually active, these are not questions I would want to answer in front of a total stranger, especially an immigration officer. And as an asexual person, I don't think I would be able to answer them satisfactorily. I mean, even if I were to lie, I don't know how much sex is normal to have in a relationship. Would it be suspicious to overestimate? What if they find my social media and find out that I'm openly ace? I'm pretty sure there are harsh penalties for lying to immigration officials. There are also places like Shawnee, Kansas, with co-living bans that affect ace couples' ability to live together. And let's not forget that conversion therapy for minors is still legal in over half of all states. And conversion therapy does cover asexuality. It's almost like ace people and gay people have common issues that they could come together to fight against. Who would have thought?
Religious persecution.
If you're someone like
November Kelly,
you're probably very surprised right now. Huh? But I thought conservative Christians loved asexuality, you're saying? You mean they're not excited that there are people who aren't having sex? I thought they hated sex. Well, as it turns out, religious people only like it when people aren't having sex outside of marriage. See, to Christians, marriage is about procreation. This is why they work so hard to ban contraception and abortions in gay marriage, because to them, if you're married, you should be cranking out babies. But if you're ace and single, don't think that means you're off the hook. Because unless you're taking a vow of celibacy to join the clergy, they believe you should be trying your hardest to get married to somebody of the opposite sex and have as many babies as possible. I'm not being hyperbolic either, they literally say this. Quote, asexuality is when a man or a woman has no desire to have sexual relations. But is asexuality the same as the gift of celibacy that Paul alludes to in 1 Corinthians 7:7? The answer is no. Asexuality may be one component of the gift of celibacy, but this gift has more to it than that. Remember that Christ said that men became eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake, and that the Apostle Paul said the gift of celibacy was given so that one could attend upon the Lord without distraction. So if you have no desire for sexual relations, this by itself does not give you an exemption from God's command to be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth in Genesis 1:28, or in other words, marry, have sex, and have children. Now I've only talked about Christianity here because it's the one we have to deal with the most as residents of the United States. I don't know much about other places where other religions are dominant, and that kind of research would be outside of the scope of this video. It's research I'd love to do, but I don't really have time right now. It's already the 10th. I need to get this video out by the end of the month.
Corrective rape.
It may surprise you to learn, but I don't like talking about sexual assault. It makes me very uncomfortable. But if we're going to talk comprehensively about ACE issues, we have to talk about corrective rape. In 2015, the ACE Census Summary Report found that, quote, 35.4% of ACE respondents reported having experienced sexual contact, including groping or kissing, that they didn't consent to or were unable to consent to. 35%. That's more than 1 in 3. That's twice the reported percentage for US women as a whole. The usual rebuttal is that we're appropriating the issue from lesbians. Imagine if you were a white person who got brutalized by the police, and every time you tried to speak out about your experience, people would tell you, oh, you can't talk about that, you're appropriating that from black people. How do you appropriate something that actually happens? Oh, you still don't think it actually happens? Here are some quotes from a survey by ACT ACEs. If you don't want to hear people describing their sexual assault in no uncertain terms, you can skip to here. The first friend I ever told about my asexuality told me I was too cute to be asexual. He later took me out for drinks on my birthday, drugged me, and raped me in my own home. He tried to justify it later by saying I didn't know my own secret wants. He raped me several times to try to convince me that I wasn't asexual. And one time, while trying to force my mouth open for oral sex, he pulled the bottom bracket off my braces. If I spoke about being uncomfortable with sex, he would suggest the idea of me drinking to get through it. My ex forced himself on me because of my lack of interest in sex and sexual activity, and made me feel extreme guilt because he said I didn't love him because I wasn't interested in having sex with him. My now ex-husband required that I provide him with at least 2 intimate sexual acts each week. 10 years ago, he told me that the reason he had an affair and contemplated ending our marriage was because I was not providing sufficient intimate sexual acts. That threat was held over my head for 10 years. Under that duress, I have engaged in sexual acts that I did not want to be a part of at least twice a week for 10 years. And it still wasn't enough. Throughout that 10-year period, he had multiple affairs and has left me for his most recent sexual partner. If your response to people telling you they were raped is, you're appropriating, you don't actually give a shit about rape survivors. You're just using them to further a fucking agenda. This isn't a game. You don't get oppression points. You don't get to call, but I called first. These are real people's lives and they have real trauma. Fuck off with this appropriation bullshit. That's not how things work in the real fucking world. Touch grass. I wanted to add a little addendum at the end of this section, just because I thought it was funny. I was going through the screenshots for all of the evidence of claims, and I noticed that a lot of people make like a big fuss about people being kicked out of their parents' place, as if that's like the be-all end-all of queer oppression. But I guess I shouldn't really be surprised, since a lot of these people are teenagers, and so there's not really a lot that a queer teenager can think of that's worse than being kicked out of their parents' house. Now we get to the section that has, to me, the most ridiculous category of claims, where people legitimately think that not only are asexuals not oppressed, but they are actually participating in the oppression of, well, several groups. This should be pretty laughable if you've watched the rest of this video, but I know if I don't mention it, I'm gonna get even more assholes than usual commenting on this and making these claims. So let's get into them anyway.
Asexuals are all just privileged white people.
Well, this is demonstrably false due to the fact that one of the most famous and visible asexual activists is a black woman. Okay, I guess I need more than that. The 2020 ACE Community Survey found that 80% of respondents identified as white. For comparison, according to the 2020 US Census, 63% of residents identified as white. Now, I'll admit that's a bit of a disparity, but if asexuality was just a white thing, I'd imagine we'd see a bit higher of a percentage than 80%. That said, I think this is something that ace folks need to be aware of. I'd probably chalk it up to lack of resources outside the internet. If there's one thing asexual people seem to be, it's online. Look, I get it, that's where I've spent most of my life too, but the number of people out there who barely use social media might surprise you. We should be conducting surveys and taking census info in real life. Maybe at Pride events? The other issue is likely sampling bias. These surveys usually spread via word of mouth, which tends to introduce a problem, as most respondents are going to be friends of each other and therefore somewhat homogenous as a group. Again, conducting them in person would mostly fix this issue, as you can reach out to strangers on the street in a way that's a lot harder to do on social media. But yeah, this is something we should probably work on. Again, I doubt it's an issue of asexuality being a white people thing as much as it's an issue of reach and exposure. The ACT ACEs survey from 2015 I mentioned earlier had an even higher percentage of white respondents, so we're obviously doing better about getting the word out. It's just a slow process.
Asexuals are homophobic.
It's hard to definitively talk about this claim because the reasoning for it is the most varied out of all of them. Claims seem to range from, "You're homophobic because you hate gay sex," to, "You're homophobic because you're appropriating corrective rape from lesbians," to, "You're homophobic because you're trying to claim you're queer when you're not." For the most part, it seems to be the accusation du jour to throw out whenever you're mad about asexual people existing in queer spaces. Most of the reasons behind it seem to either be obvious nonsense or things I've already covered in this video. So watch those parts if you haven't, and maybe it'll make more sense. There's one particular claim I'll be getting into in the final section that could possibly be the origin point for the claims of homophobia, but we'll get to that in due time. You'll want to stick around for it. It's a wild one.
Asexuals are transphobic.
Alright, I don't really have a lot of examples for this one because it's kind of obscure, but I see it get thrown around maybe once every year or so, and everyone just seems to kind of ignore it because it's pretty transparently ridiculous. From what I can tell, it usually comes from trans women getting upset that ace folks don't want to sleep with them. This kind of thing used to be a lot more common in trans discourse around a decade ago, where trans women would accuse people of being transphobic simply for rejecting them. The reason for it didn't actually have to be transphobic, just the act of rejection itself was considered transphobic. Yeah, I know it's kind of a turf talking point nowadays, but I've legitimately seen it happen. Trust me, I'm trans, I'm femme, I've been out in this community for over 11 years. I've seen shit when it comes to discourse. Anyway, to all the baby transes out there, I know getting rejected sucks, but if you dwell on the reasoning, it's just gonna make you bitter. You don't want to end up like an incel. They probably weren't worth it anyway. Just move on with your life and find someone who actually wants you. Alright, this is the fun part. At least, fun for me. I just enjoy picking apart patently ridiculous nonsense. This is the bottom of the barrel. The stuff that only the weirdest of the weirdos believe. Buckle up, because these are some real smooth brain takes.
Promoting asexuality will lead to more rape.
That's not how rape works, my dude. People don't just go out and rape because they're horny. It's about power dynamics and feeling superior. Look, people have done studies on this shit, okay? Sounds like you just want an excuse to rape people to me.
Attractive people can't be asexual.
Why not? What's your reasoning? Is it because you need them to be sexually available so you can feel like you have a chance, or what? Because what this seems like to me is some repurposed incel shit. I don't know, maybe it's just because I don't think people should have to have sex with me because I said so.
Heteroromantic asexuals are basically just straight.
This is actually a common one, but I put it in the nonsense category because it's just silly to me. Cishet aces don't exist. You know why? Because in order to be cishet, they'd have to be heterosexual, and they're asexual. This comes from the same train of logic that people use when they say bisexual people who are in a relationship with the opposite gender are basically straight. Straight and straight passing are two very different things. Y'all should learn the difference sometime.
Asexuals are taking resources from other queer people.
There are two reasons I can see someone believing this. One is that people think asexuals aren't oppressed, and I have a whole section of this video dedicated to how wrong that is. And the other is that they think asexuals are inherently less valuable as people than allosexual gays. I hope I don't have to explain to you why that's bad to think.
Asexuals are actually gay people who have repressed their homosexuality so much that they—
Stop. What? What are you even talking about? This is some Alex Jones conspiracy theory shit. This is like how TERFs sometimes try to claim that gay people are being forcibly transitioned as a form of conversion therapy because they think it's more acceptable to be trans than gay. I've looked for the source of this claim and I cannot find it for the life of me. As far as I can tell, it's not based on any sort of reality. It's just something that someone made up one day and some other people went, well, I guess it must be true, and started parroting it without question. It's honestly wild to me that this is still a thing that gets trotted out in the year of our Lord 2024. Just stop. Please. For me. So yeah, that's about it. If you're wondering why I didn't bring up things like gray asexuality or demisexuality or the fact that some ace folks still have sex while not experiencing sexual attraction, keep in mind that this is about ace discourse and the broader queer community, not asexuality as a whole. I'm not here to do a comprehensive lesson on what asexuality is. Other people have done that much better than I can. As for me, I don't know if I'm going to be making much more asexuality focused content in the future. I don't really think that's my niche as a creator. If you're looking for ace specific content, you'll probably want to look somewhere else. The Ace Couple podcast is right here on YouTube, for example. Can't recommend them enough. But if you want to support a creator who happens to be ace, you can drop me a few bucks on Patreon. I make this style of content about other topics all the time. Usually around once a month, but I'm trying to get more frequent with my uploads. And giving me money will help me be able to upload more frequently. As usual, treat people like people. I'll see you in the next one.
Alley Cat Blues.